Hi everyone, my name is Ankita Masant. I'm an associate architect at Tribo. I work on Tribo's SaaS product called Hotel Superhero. Hotel Superhero is a cloud-based hotel property management system used by various hotel chains across the world. It provides a pool of features for creating, managing bookings, generating invoices, various reports, configuring prices of rooms in a hotel. We have been extensively using GraphQL for this application. Today, I'll talk about GraphQL performance and monitoring. Here's a list of topics that we'll look at in this talk. Performance implications of using GraphQL in the stack, designing GraphQL schemas, batching and caching at a request level using data loaders, lazily loading some fields and streaming responses in a GraphQL query using the new defer and stream directives, caching in GraphQL, and finally monitoring GraphQL queries using New Relic. Let's get going. We'll understand the implications of using GraphQL by using a simple use case of a hotel property management system. What you see on the screen is the representation of the Big Bang Hotel. It has three room types, room type 1, 2, and 3. 1A, 1B, 1C are the rooms for room type 1. And booking, like the blank boxes indicate bookings for particular rooms. Booking 1 and booking 2 are for room number 1A. The bigger box indicates that booking extends for more number of days. What would it take to render this UI using a front-end client? So this is a view that a hotelier sees on his screen to understand and manage bookings for his hotel. Let's look at the HTTP calls that we would have to make from the front-end client to render this user interface and show the list of bookings in this hotel. We'll first make parallel calls to fetch hotel data like name, location. We'll then make a call for fetching room types, rooms, bookings. And once we get a list of bookings from the downstream services, we'll make calls to fetch bills. So every booking is associated with a bill. And there are also some attachments in a booking that we have to show on that user interface. So for every booking, we'll fetch is corresponding bill and attachments. Every booking is done for a particular user. We'll then call the users API to fetch more details about that user and also his preferences. This looks okay, and there are not too many calls. This is something that we are used to. These are the API calls only when there are 3 bookings in a hotel. If you have seen carefully, we were fetching bill API thrice, which means there are 3 bookings in a hotel. A hotel cannot afford a property management system for managing 3 bookings. What would happen if there are hundreds of bookings in a hotel? So we'll have to make 100 API calls to fetch bills, attachments. There would be too many round trips from front-end client to server. How do we solve these issues? We were at the early stage of building this application, and it looked okay to experiment with GraphQL and see how it turns out. The GraphQL would give the response in one API call. There are no multiple round trips to the server. It is declarative in nature, and the client specifies the data that it needs, and hence a considerable reduction in the response size. There is no repeated boilerplate code for different front-end applications. And the strongest of all, it has strong type system. The pitch went really well, and the front-end team got a chance to experiment with GraphQL and add it to the stack. Let's look at the GraphQL query that we are using for collectively fetching the response of all the API calls. If you see, there's a query hotel by ID. Inside hotel by ID, we are fetching room types. For every room type, we are fetching rooms. We are also fetching bookings in the same query. And inside bookings, we are fetching bill for every booking, attachments, customers. And for every customer, we are fetching his preferences. Let's see how each of these queries would be resolved on the GraphQL server. For resolving hotel by ID query, we are making a call to the downstream service to fetch details of a hotel. For resolving room types, we are making a call to fetch room types from a downstream service. And for every room type, we are fetching rooms. This is the call that we make to fetch bookings. And for every booking, we'll make call to fetch its corresponding bill, attachments, customers, and for every customer, we'll make a call to fetch his preferences. This looks cool because we don't have to write code on the front-end side to manage when to fire particular APIs. Like bill is dependent on booking. Once we get response of bookings, then only we can fire bill APIs. We also don't have to run maps on the front-end to map room types to rooms, rooms to bookings, bookings to bill. GraphQL does all of that. So what are the performance implications of using GraphQL? After all the hard work, we felt that the performance of the application is not improved much for bigger bookings that extend for more number of days, that have more customers, or for hotels that have more room types and more rooms. So let's look at a list of API calls that we are making to the downstream services. Let's consider an example of 25 bookings. For example, in that query, we are fetching 25 bookings. We'll make one call to fetch the details of a hotel, one call to fetch room types. Let's say it returns 6 room types. Now, for every room type, we'll fetch its corresponding rooms. So we'll make 6 calls to /rooms API. One call to fetch bookings. This API returns 25 bookings. That's why we'll make 25 calls to fetch bills and 25 calls to fetch attachments, which are for every booking. Collectively, there are 100 users in all of these bookings. One booking can have multiple users. So we'll make 100 calls to fetch user details, 100 calls to fetch his preferences. Total in all, there are 259 calls that we have to make for fetching 225 bookings and showing it on the user interface. Yes, we have to make 259 calls to the downstream services for resolving just one GraphQL query. What would happen if there are more room types and rooms in a hotel? The number of API calls would keep increasing based on the number of room types, rooms, bookings, and the number of users in these bookings. How do we make this right? Let's analyze what we are actually doing in this query. We are fetching the entire response in one GraphQL query, including the users and their preferences. We are fetching room types inside the hotel object, which is all okay. But for every room type, we are calling the rooms API to fetch rooms, because this is the structure the user interface expects. We are doing this because we don't have to run loops on the front end to get the entire mapped object as it is required by the user interface. We are fetching bills inside the booking object, which means we'll call the bills API for every booking. We don't have to display the user preferences on load. Why fetch it in the initial call and show loading state to the user? This is unfair to the user because he's not even concerned of seeing user preferences in the first go. How do we solve these issues? Should a GraphQL schema map one-on-one to your user interface or to your domain models? If you see carefully, we are fetching room types inside the hotel object, because room types is a property of a hotel, which is all okay. But we are fetching rooms inside each of these room types. Rooms is not a property of a room type. Rooms is a property of a hotel. Domain model considers rooms as a property of a hotel and not of room type. We are doing this because that's how the user interface that we are trying to build expects. So at which level in the query should we fetch rooms? We should try to design our GraphQL schema more like our domain model, because if you design it based on your user interface, you would be able to satisfy just one use case of your front-end clients. And GraphQL schema should be designed in a robust way so that it can be used by different front-end clients. Rooms field should be a property of a hotel and not room types. Let's move ahead. Here we are fetching preferences inside the user object, and preferences is a property of a user. That's how exactly the domain model also expects. How do we solve this problem of multiple API calls for user preferences field, although this is mapped the right way? Here comes the interesting part of the talk, batching and caching using data loader. You would be able to understand the importance of data loaders only if you have seen multiple calls going to your downstream services for resolving one single GraphQL query. Data loader basically collects the API request within a single frame of execution. What you see on the screen is the number of API calls before using data loaders is 259 to the downstream services. It is now reduced to 2 calls to the downstream services. How did this happen? So data loader doesn't fire API calls immediately to your downstream services. It would collect all the API requests and then within a single frame of execution, and then would fire one batched API call. For example, for resolving every bill, we were calling bills API 25 times. Here, if you see, this is a batched call. Data loader is collecting all the bill IDs and would fire downstream service only once. Same goes for attachments, user IDs, and also for preferences. So if you count this, there are just 8 calls that we have to make to downstream services for fetching 25 bookings. Data loader is a great addition to the stack, and it is not very difficult to implement this in the GraphQL server. So this creates magic by reducing 259 calls to downstream services to 8. And this is a great performance booster to your applications. Let's look at the implementation of bills loader and users loader. So bills loader, this takes in some keys, as in some bill IDs, and it then calls the batch bills loader. We'll look at the implementation of batch bills loader function in a moment. You have to return these data loaders from the context object so that it is available in all the resolvers. This is how a batch bills loader function looks like. It collects all the bill IDs within a single frame of execution and would then call the downstream service only once. It would return an array of bills. So from your resolver, you have to write bills loader.load. This is the first bill ID, second bill ID. All these bills are different, but GraphQL server won't call the bills API immediately. It would collect all these bill IDs and then would fire this badged call at once. Same goes for users. This is the badged API that we can use for users. And these are all different users, but we would call the downstream API call only once. This is the batching really improves and helps a lot in boosting the performance of the application. Let's see how data loaders help in caching at a request level. If you're calling the same key twice in a data loader in the same request, that the subsequent responses would be served from the cache. Let's understand this with the help of an example. Here's a GraphQL query that we are using to fetch JavaScript conferences. We are fetching name, location, speakers of that conference, their talks, and profile of every speaker. Bob is speaking at 4 conferences, which means that without data loaders, obviously his profile is going to be fetched 4 times, even though it has the same user profile ID. But if you're using data loaders to fetch this user profile, the subsequent calls for his profile would be served from the cache. Let's look at the implementation. This is a user profile loader badged function. It is going to collect the keys and then would hit the downstream services. If you see user profile.load, this is the same user ID, right? This is the user ID of Bob. First call, we'll call downstream services. These are all same API calls. So it is going to call downstream service only once. Perfect. Looks like we are able to solve the multiple API calls disaster using batching and caching. Obviously, 259 calls getting reduced to 8. Can we do more? Can we improve further? If you have noticed carefully, the preferences field in the user object is not on the critical path of user interface interactivity. Can we defer the execution of that user preferences resolver? Yes, we can. We can use defer directives to defer the execution of user preference resolver. Let's see how we would do it. All we have to do is just add defer directive to the preferences field in your query. The response that we would get, so preferences would be null in the initial response till GraphQL resolves it on the backside. And in the same HTTP connection, we would get the response of preferences as patches. What you see here is the response of bookings object 1, customers 1, and these are the preferences of that particular customer. Preferences would be loaded asynchronously on the user interface, and it won't block the main view. What we have been thinking till now is request gets resolved to a response. So we send a request in the HTTP connection to a GraphQL server. GraphQL server resolves all the fields in a query and sends back the response. It is easy to understand defer and stream. If you imagine it this way, we send request to a GraphQL server. You are subscribed to an observable. The same HTTP connection is still open, and GraphQL server keeps sending responses and patches as per the execution of the fields. Let's also see how we would use stream directives. Let's say you have 100 bookings for a particular hotel. You don't want to fetch all hundreds of bookings in the same query. You won't even be able to fit those bookings in the viewport of the user. So in this query, we are telling GraphQL that please send me 10 bookings and stream rest of the bookings as patches in the same HTTP connection. We'll get 10 bookings in the initial response, and the subsequent bookings would be served as patches. This all works well for a single request. But there's one important thing that we have missed. The hotel room types and room numbers don't change quite often. Can we do something about this? Let's look at what resolver level caching is. So we can cache static data that do not depend on the identity of the user in Redis or Memcache for some fixed TTL. Room types and room fields of a hotel, they are static and would be same for all the users. This is a good example of resolver level caching. Let's see how we would do that. When a front-end client requests for hotel bookings query from GraphQL server, while resolving room types, we are first checking if room types is present in the Redis cache. If it is present, we'll directly serve it from the cache. If it is not present, we'll hit the downstream service, store the response in Redis, and then send it back. Same goes for rooms resolver. We'll check if rooms is present in Redis cache. If it is present, serve it directly from the cache. Otherwise, hit the downstream service and store the response in Redis and then send it back to the resolver. Here in this case, even though room types and room fields don't change that quite often, we are still hitting the GraphQL server. Is it possible that we get this response from the nearest CDN server and we don't even have to hit the GraphQL server? Yes, we are talking about GET request here. In GraphQL, if you have seen, we always make post requests. This is because we send the query string. We send the query string to GraphQL as a request payload in post request, because it doesn't fit well in cacheable GET request. So the first milestone to hit here is to convert post to GET request. How do we do that? We can do it using automatic persistent queries, and it is very simple to implement. With automatic persistent queries, we send the hash of query string in get HTTP request to the Apollo server or any GraphQL server. Then server figures out that this particular hash corresponds to this particular query string. It would resolve that query and send the response back in the same response format that the client would expect. So here we have accomplished this goal of sending GET HTTP request from the front-end client using GraphQL. Now what's next? Once we are able to send GET request, which means that we can take advantage of all the cache control headers that are available. We can specify the max age. We can specify the max age of a field in a query that for which this particular field is valid, and it is okay to serve this field from the nearest CDN service instead of hitting the GraphQL servers. So yeah, we can take advantage of all the cache control headers, and this would improve performance even further. Let's recap what all we learned in caching. We learned that we can do caching per request using data loaders. We can do resolver level caching to store the response of downstream services in Redis or Memcache. We can use automatic persistent queries to send the hash of the query string to GraphQL. And we can use cache control headers on different fields in the query. Here's a question for thought. Now that we are using GET request, can GraphQL support 304 not modified HTTP response status code? I'll move on to the next topic, which is monitoring GraphQL request New Relic. This is really interesting, and it is a great addition to the stack. What you see on the screenshot, this is the top 20 most time consuming GraphQL queries. You can also see the slowest average response time top 20 GraphQL queries. You can look at P95, P99 times of a particular GraphQL query using this powerful tool. This screenshot shows the calls that you're making to external services, the percentage of calls that you're making to your different microservices. This shows the trace details of a GraphQL query. So whenever there's a new requirement or a new feature on the front-end client, all we think that we have to add this particular field in a query, and that's it. We would get the response and we would render it on the UI. We don't even think that this particular field is going to make an API call to downstream service, or is going to hit the database, and that would impact the performance of this particular query. So by looking at the trace details, we come to know that this particular field takes this much time to resolve, or this particular field hits the backend service. This particular field this particular field is hitting your database. So by looking at the trace details of a particular query, it is very easy to understand what is consuming time in this GraphQL query. Let's recap all that we learned in this talk. The clients might face a performance hit for bigger and more nested queries in GraphQL. We should keep an eye on how many API requests or database queries we are making in a GraphQL query. We should design the GraphQL schema more like our domain and not map it to the front-end user interface. Data loaders are used for batching multiple API calls to the same endpoint in one request, and thus reduces the load on your downstream services, the way we saw for bills and users API. Data loaders also help in caching the same API request and call the downstream service only once for the same cache key. We saw that Bob is speaking at 4 conferences, but we were loading his profile only once because his user profile ID is the same. We can use defer directives to defer the response of some of the fields in a query that are not in the critical path of user interactivity, take more time to resolve, or have a bigger response size. We saw that we can defer the execution of preferences resolver in a user object. We can use stream directives to stream the response of the list field in a query. We can use Redis or Memcache to cache the response of downstream services at a resolver level. Right? We saw that we don't have to hit backend services for getting static data like room types and rooms of a hotel. We can get it directly from Redis or Memcache. Finally, we can use automatic persistent queries and make GET requests from front-end client to GraphQL servers. Here, we send the hash of the query in a GET request to the GraphQL server. Using this, we can take advantage of all the cache control headers by specifying the TTL for some of the fields in that query, and then we can fetch these from the nearest CDN server. Finally, New Relic makes our life easy, and it shows the trace details of a particular GraphQL query. It is really a good addition to the stack. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.